Olá, bom dia a todos. Meu nome é Priscila, eu sou estudante do curso de inglês da USP e eu estou aqui para apresentar o nosso programa Poesia ao Meio Dia, da Cátedra W.P. Yeats, de Estudos Irlandeses, e vou apresentar a vocês agora a nossa host, Susan Roy, que hoje faremos um especial de Natal. Let me... Hello, Susan.
Hello
Good
there.
morning. So we are really, really thankful to have you join us today. And I don't want to keep you too long here. The floor is all yours. So it's you.
We'll get down to it then. Okay, thank you, Priscilla. So, this week I have chosen various poems, more or less, on the theme of winter, Christmas, and I hope you're going to enjoy them. Winter has very much arrived here in Ireland. Last week we had temperatures as low as -4 one night, and we've already had snow in the west of Ireland. The children love it, of course, but most of us adults could do without the disruption it brings. So, as I say, my poems this month are a mixture of musings about winter and thoughts of the oncoming season of Christmas. And as usual, my first poem comes from William Butler Yeats, and it's called Mad as Mist and Snow. Yeats wrote this poem when he was, I think it was 63 or so, and he's talking about how even the greatest minds succumb to a kind of cold madness over time. So you can only keep the shutters closed for so long. And that fact just makes Yeats shudder. The cold has gotten in despite him having tried to shield it himself through knowledge and education. But he just can't avoid the impact that aging has made on his mind. And as he says, it's the same for everyone, no matter who they are. So I guess he thinks we're all at the growing risk of feeling the numbing effects of the mist and snow. Mad as the mist and snow. Bolt the bar and shutter, for the foul winds blow. Our minds are at their best this night, and I seem to know that everything outside us is mad as the mist and snow. Horace there by Homer stands, Plato stands below, and here is Tully's open page. How many years ago were you and I unlettered lads, mad as the mist and snow? You ask what makes me sigh, old friend, what makes me shudder so? I shudder, and I sigh to think that even Cicero and the many-minded Homer were mad as the mist and snow. As Christmas approaches, I guess it's a time that we start to focus a lot on children. It's a huge and exciting event for children here in Ireland. My next poem is by an award-winning Dublin poet, actually called Jean O'Brien. And she studied creative writing in Trinity College in Dublin. She spends her time giving lectures and workshops, and she's a founding member of the Dublin Writers' Workshop. But of course, she has 5 very well-received collections of poetry. And her latest book actually was just published in 2022, and it was called Stars Burn Regardless. And like Yeats, this poem is about the passage of time, but also about that loss of innocence and joy, which I suppose we think about that children have, and especially now as Christmas approaches. And we see ourselves as children, and we mourn that fact that that's gone now, and here we are, all sensible grown adults. Anyway, it's called We, the Children by Jean O'Brien. We, the children, have grown old. We danced the sun down on summer's days, watched from bedroom windows as night sky changed from blue to black, cried for water, our teddy, our favourite doll, anything to sing the adults back. The drizzling rain of winter that made our parents cross and hurry us along delighted us. We had all the time in the world, our hands full with it. As in rubber boots we jump splashed into puddles, our supreme power displacing water. We gained ground, left footprints in the snow, and grew relentlessly. The adults seemed to flatten as our voices deepened. Some nights there were no stars. Could we have heeded the warnings, the arrow in flight, time's headlong rush? Now we, the children, pass in the streets, stare at our faces, mirrored, grown old, with all that glut of time. I'm following that poem up with a lovely poem by John McKenna. He's the author of 16 books. He writes novels, short story collections, memoir, biography, and of course poetry. He's won lots of prizes: the Hennessy Prize, the Irish Times, the C.J. Lewis Awards, and he was nominated for the Irish Fiction Laureate Award. And his most recent book is called Absent Friend, and that's a memoir about his friendship with Leonard Cohen. John McKenna teaches writing at Maynooth University, and this lovely, short, simple poem is called Winter Apples. And it just gives me that feeling of seeing the red apples in winter, the colour, the red against the white snow, the crunch of the inside of the apple, like the crunch of footsteps in snow. And it just makes a very beautiful picture. So, Winter Apples by John McKenna. There is something in the sight of winter apples hugging the highest branch in mid-December. A dim burn glistens from the frosted skin, like sunlight budding through a fog. And there is sweetness and sharpness in the flesh, the virtue of the blameless, the long hill yet to climb. So as well as winter having thoroughly descended upon us here in Ireland, we're also in the middle of the campaign for a general election. And election day is actually Friday. So there's a lot of people very concerned with social issues here, like the cost of living, homelessness, and immigration, just to name but a few. And my next poems address some of these issues. The first poem is a lovely poem by Alan Titley, and it has the lovely echo of the Christmas story about it and the sad reality of how easy we forget. He's from Cork, and he himself is the author of 7 novels, 4 collections of stories, lots of plays, and he's well known for his Irish. He has written, I think, one of the longest poems ever written in the Irish language, called An Bhean Fasa. And he's a professor of modern Irish at UCC in Cork and a member of the Royal Irish Academy. And his poem is called I Was Hungry. I Was Hungry by Alan Titley. I was hungry and you said, you can't eat here. I had no place to sleep. And you said, not in my inn. I had nowhere to go. And you said, not in my backyard. My town was burned down. And you said, my town is full. I fought against ISIS. And you said, no men need apply. My family drowned at sea. And you said, we have no swimming pool. I said I was cold. And you said, we can fix that easily. I have no money. And you said, the shops are too far away anyway. I said, I'm just as human as you. And you muttered, well, not really. I said, you're supposed to love your neighbour as yourself. And you laughed. That's a lot of old guff. I said, this all happened to you too. And you said, but that was a long time ago. My next poet is Rachel Hegarty. I have presented 1 or 2 poems of hers before in this series. She's a prize-winning poet, educator, and broadcaster, and she comes from Dublin's North Inner City. She's the poet laureate for her area, and she's passionate about getting more working class and migrant students to get as much learning as they want to get. And so she teaches with the Trinity Access Programme and Dublin Education and Training Board. She writes in her own vernacular, her wonderful style of conversation that's very normal in the Liberty in North Dublin, where she comes from. And this poem addresses the issue of homelessness. And unfortunately, it paints an all too familiar picture of Dublin. And it's called Mary and Joseph on a Cardboard Bed by Rachel Hegarty. Ah, come here till I tell you, I saw them, round young Mary with Joseph, asleep outside Liberty Hall on a cardboard bed, in sleeping bags and hooded winter coats. Sure, I didn't know where to be looking. Scarlet, like I'd walked in on a couple in their own bedroom. But it was a street, on the quays, by the Liffey, at rush hour. Dubliners running to work and school, while the lovers, our homeless lovers, tried to get the last bit of a morning cuddle. She had her head down, nuzzled into him. He had his head out, eyes shut, but ready, if needs be, to heave ho. Come on, let's go. Thomas Kinsella is the next poet I'd like to present. He's a very renowned poet, and he came from Inchicore in Dublin. Although he spent most of his life in the US, he returned to Dublin and he settled down until he died in 2021 at the age of 93. As I said, he is a giant of Irish poetry. He stands with Joyce as one of the great innovators in modern Irish literature. And when it was the first anniversary of his death, the Irish Times published a poem which dated from the beginning of his life in the early 1950s, and the poem hadn't appeared in any of his collections. In the year before his death, he worked on a few final poems, and he revised earlier uncollected poems. And then this one, Christmas Eve, and those other poems appeared in his last collection of poems, which was published posthumously in February 2023, and that's called Last Poems. It's again a poem of remembering, looking back, and it's called Christmas Eve 1950 by Thomas Kinsella. We have come to the meeting of the ways. The book is laid aside, that deep book, an ancient tale of a favoured son of God, Lord of Egypt. Then, in the ancient days, the way of a man of God was wide, and his goal was wide and filled with light, which melted the edge of the earth, which mind made. And in the light, and of the light, and the light was the great God, indefinable. And Joseph, where that page lies open, speaks before Pharaoh, cunningly and wisely, and their two minds search in heaven and grope in the misty, equivocal stuff of God. The coals are fading. My lamp glows. My book rests open on a couch. I think of one poet whose lamp glowed in a tower, who wrote of the herald angel on Christmas Eve, through the world's clouds down steering, and of another whose subtle words searched behind the picture for the dry thought, drifting on the quick void, where love and imagination colour the dark, which is the nearest we might get to the truth. And their labours set me the scene, the way of ancient man who knew the spiritual and lived in God, cowardly and terrified. That way is closing again, like rays of light that are like rapiers. The rays strike, and shining alone in the darkness is the one way, the way of the timeless God, who is pierced and entered time. Moving on, Christmas is a time, especially here in Ireland, that we have many traditions, and it evokes many, many memories. The traditions we carried out as children, stirring the Christmas cake when our mums were making it, carol singing, visiting Santa, putting the lights on the Christmas tree. celebrating as a family. As adults, nowadays at Christmas, we miss those who have gone before us, the parents who made Christmas so great for us, perhaps, or the great friend, or the child, or the brother or sister, or aunt, uncle, grandfather, the people who are missing at the Christmas table. Our toast at Christmas is always to absent friends. And so today I'm going to finish with a toast from Seamus Heaney as he raises a glass of sloe gin. Sloe gin is a traditional drink made from sloes, which are black bitter berries that grow in the wild here in Ireland, and you collect them and you feed them gin basically, and they mature and develop this wonderful taste in the gin over months. Usually a drink which people drink at Christmas. Sloe gin, Seamus Heaney. The clear weather of juniper darkened into winter. She fed gin to sloes and sealed the glass container. When I unscrewed it, I smelled the disturbed, tart stillness of a bush rising through the pantry. When I poured it, it had a cutting edge and flamed like betelgeuse. I drink to you in smoke-merled, blue-black polished sloes, savage and reliable. And so, to end today's episode of Poesia, Meio Dia, I'm going to leave you with Pat Boran's wonderful poetry film, Jingle Bells. And I want to take this opportunity to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, or, as we say here in Ireland, Nollaig Honna Díobh go léir. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, and I'll see you all in the new year. So let's go now, if we can, with Unhappy Christmas, Jingle Bells.
Jingle bells, jingle bells. What's left to say? The world has changed so much for us since you went away. Christmas morning, we'll be up, but conscious of a gap in space and time. That vacant chair, the single empty glass. And if it snows, and snow it might, we'll goof around outside like kids again. Our own footsteps to lead us back inside. So jingle bells, jingle, you bells. Life continuing. Sometimes like this, when you're adrift, all you can do is sing.
Thank you.